You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast at savage.love.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
Right after the insurrection, right after January 6th. No, wait, I want to be accurate. During the insurrection, there was a report that one of the rioters died after tasing himself in the balls. Apparently, the guy had a taser in his pocket, concealed in his front pocket, and it went off accidentally and repeatedly as he stormed through the Capitol building. And the shock, or the shocks from the taser to the nuts, caused him to have a heart attack and die. This turned out not to be true. A man did die of a heart attack during the insurrection, one of the 5 people that died that day. But as later reports made clear, including an eyewitness account from a reporter for the New York Times, the balls in question, which belonged to a man named Kevin Greason, a Trump supporter from Alabama, they were never tased. Greason, who had a weak heart, did not have a taser. Turns out, didn't even make it into the Capitol building that day. Greason died on a sidewalk outside the building. After the story was debunked, I refused to let it go. There wasn't a lot to laugh about after January 6th, but this guy tasing himself in the balls? Yeah, I had to laugh. So I embraced ball tase trutherism. If right-wingers can believe that Italian hackers used Vatican satellites, which do not exist, to alter vote totals in swing states and throw the 2020 election to Joe Biden, and if they can believe Hillary Clinton runs a pedophile sex ring out of the basement of a pizza parlor in Washington, D.C., which is housed in a building that does not have a basement, the latter being a conspiracy theory that prompted a man to burst into that pizza parlor with an AR-15 to rescue the children being held captive in that basement that did not exist. If they can believe all the shit that they believe, the Q nonsense, well, I can believe that dude tased himself in the balls. There's no harm in it. No one was going to burst into his pants with an AR-15 to free his nuts. I mean, the dude was dead and he wasn't going to get any deader. And if my ball tase trutherism convinced just one right-wing jerk not to carry a taser around in his front pocket at their next insurrection, maybe it could save a life. But you know, just now, I went back and reread the reports about this man's death to make sure I was getting the facts right. And because I'm a liberal and a progressive, I am capable of empathy and I have a heart. So I am walking away from ball tase trutherism. A man died. Again, 5 people died that day. And the quotes from Kevin Greason's grieving widow, the quotes she gave to reporters after his death was reported out, they're heartbreaking. He was wrong about Donald Trump, wrong about the election, but he was a human being and he was loved and he is missed. All right, so the reason I'm dredging up this guy's balls, which perished with him that day, is because of J.D. Vance's sofa. If you were under a rock this week or hiding behind a couch, you may have missed the story that prompted the AP to post and then almost immediately retract a piece with the headline, "No, J.D. Vance did not have sex with a couch." Why would J.D. Vance have to deny having sex with a couch? Because some genius on Twitter pulled a stunt, the greatest online political prank since, credit to my readers rendered Rick Santorum ungoogleable. At Rick Rude's Calves tweeted this on July 15th at 4 p.m. Can't say for sure, but he might be the first VP pick, he means J.D. Vance here, to have admitted in a New York Times bestseller to fucking an inside-out latex glove shoved between 2 couch cushions. Parentheses, Vance, comma, hillbilly elegy, comma, page 179 to 181, close parentheses. It took a week for that tweet to blow up, but oh my God, when it did, it was a thing of beauty. And it was the inclusion of that citation with page numbers referencing hillbilly elegy J.D. Vance's bullshit memoir, the masterstroke, chef's kiss. It could be instantly fact-checked by anyone with a copy of his book, but who amongst us had a copy of his book? For the record, again, I'm going to emphasize this. Nowhere in J.D. Vance's book does he admit to fucking a couch. The story about the couch and J.D. Vance fucking the couch was instantly debunked once it blew up, but that didn't stop the memes and the jokes, which are, if you missed them, utterly hilarious. I spent most of last week making jokes myself and retweeting jokes, so head on over to my Twitter at FakeDanSavage for a curated selection. And yes, this is colossally unfair to poor J.D. Vance and, of course, his couch. And you know what? I don't care. This is a man who said single, childless women were miserable cat ladies who wanted to make everyone else as miserable as they are and suggested that maybe they shouldn't be allowed to vote or that their votes should be diluted. And then when that blew up in his face, he went on Megyn Kelly's podcast and apologized to cats, not women. Nancy, roll the tape.
Obviously, it was a sarcastic comment. I've got nothing against cats. I've got nothing against dogs. I've got one dog at home, and I love him, Megyn. But look, this is not, people are focusing so much on the sarcasm and not on the substance of what I actually said. And the substance of what I said, Megyn, I'm sorry, it's true.
All right, that's enough J.D. Vance's voice on this show for the rest of the year, at least for the next 100 days. This is a man who doesn't think women in abusive marriages with violent men should be able to divorce their abusers for the sake of the kids, because there's nothing so good for a kid than growing up watching dad beat the shit out of mom. This is a man who wants to ban abortion in all cases, including rape and incest. So yeah, fuck this guy. When you think about the unfair and truly terrible things he wants to do to American women and LGBT people and any immigrant who isn't his wife, we're allowed to make jokes at this guy's expense, even if they seem unfair. So to my liberal and progressive friends and allies and comrades who jumped online this weekend to do what liberals and progressives love more than anything, certainly more than winning, and that's scolding and tone policing other liberals and progressives by saying, in this case, hey guys, we're better than this. No, we're not. We do not have the luxury anymore of being better than this. And to those liberals and progressives who said J.D. Vance couch fucking jokes gave permission to right-wingers to make lewd jokes about our candidate, they were already doing that. They weren't waiting for permission. If you didn't see the crude jokes and insults the incels and right-wing assholes were making about Kamala Harris, it's because our jokes were better and funnier, and there were more of them. We flooded the zone with good shit. Look, we tried. When they go low, we go high, and it didn't work. Humor is a great leveler. It is a weapon that has the power to unmake the political careers of bullies like Rick Santorum and J.D. Vance. Look, I have a conscience. I honestly feel bad about the dead guy whose name will forever be associated with accidental ball tasing, and I officially apologize for my role in promoting the fake news about that guy's balls and a taser. But this Vance stuff, it's good. It's golden. One of the things reporters are always saying about Trump rallies they attend, which look like hell on earth to me, is that the people at them are having fun. They're having a blast. This weekend, liberals and progressives with a sense of humor were having fun online, having a blast. And then along come liberal and progressive scolds who seem to think being a progressive means standing athwart a good time and yelling, stop. Guys, the couch fucking stuff was funny as it was politically damaging to the GOP ticket. A real taser to the ballsack, you might say. Over on the Slate Political Gabfest, David Plotz is always observing that the people having the most fun during a campaign, the party that really seems to be enjoying itself most, tends to win elections. Right now, Dems are having the most fun. Let's keep it up. The jokes, the memes, the TikTok videos, the donations, the get out the vote efforts, and let's laugh all the way to the White House. All right, coming up on today's show, on the micro, tons of your Qs, lots of my As, and joining me on the Magnum, comedian Emily Catalano has a new album out called Hey. Emily joined me to talk orgasm gaps, bad blowjobs, and the people who give them on purpose, and why, in this day and technical age, Emily released her new album, again, Hey, on vinyl. Emily's on the Magnum. If you want to hear my conversation with Emily Catalano, become a Magnum sub now at savage.love/subscribe. And Magnum subs, please note our next Savage Love Live, our Zoom hangout exclusively for our beloved subs, is scheduled for August 1st at a new time, 2 p.m., cocktail hour on the East Coast, bedtime in Europe. Join us at Savage Love Live by becoming a Magnum sub now. And subs, send in your questions at savage.love/askdan now. We love to get questions for the live shows a little in advance. Now's the time. All right, let's get to your calls. I am going to get on your calls like JD Vance gets on a couch, starting now. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Foria. Foria crafts 100% all-natural sexual wellness products so you can experience deeper intimacy and transcendent moments of sexual pleasure solo or with your partner or partners. Get 20% off your first order by visiting foriawellness.com/savage. That's FORIA wellness.com/savage. Support for today's show, support we are very grateful for, comes from Stamps.com. With Stamps.com, you can access all the amazing services of the post office right from your desk in your own home, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just click, print, mail, and you are done. It could not be easier. And right now, use Savage for this special offer. Includes up to $55 worth of free postage, a digital scale, and a 4-week trial. Do not wait. Go to Stamps.com, and before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Savage. That's Stamps.com. Enter SAVAGE.
Hi, Dan. I'm a 35-year-old cishet woman. I'm calling with a question related to a friendship. I have a very dear friend. We've been close for about 6 years now. We live next door to each other. She has a baby who's about 8 months old. She had this baby through a sperm donor, so she's a single mom by choice. She's raising her baby as a baby, meaning the baby's completely gender neutral. And then when they are of a certain age, they can choose their own gender. My friend doesn't have much of a support system, so I do try to help her out as much as I can. We spend a lot of time together on the weekends, running errands. And what's been happening a lot lately is people will come up to her and assume the baby is a girl. They'll say things like, "Oh, what a beautiful little girl." "Oh, baby looks just like her mama." And my friend gets very, very upset by these comments. Usually she just says in a very cold tone to these people, "My child's genitals are not your concern. Thank you." It's to me, that seems a little harsh and confrontational. I've said as much to her. She just thinks it's funny. She says people, get what they deserve if they are going to ask stupid questions. So I've offered to watch the baby for her on the weekends while she runs errands. She's not comfortable with that. She doesn't want me to have to change the baby's diaper and see their biological sex. She even joked that she knows that I would sneak a peek in the baby's diaper if I were alone with the baby, which is ridiculous and a little offensive. So Dan, I'd love your advice. I've tried talking to my friend. She doesn't really care. I've offered another solution. She doesn't want to do it. I really just don't want to go places in public with them anymore because of these weird interactions. I feel very guilty though, because as I said, if I step back, I think she will definitely struggle because of that lack of support. So thanks, Dan, for any advice you could share.
Why are you whispering? Is the baby mama in the room with you now? Look, I don't understand baby. That's what people who want to raise their infants in a gender neutral, Thunderdome, they use that term, baby. Isn't baby a gender neutral term? Do we need a gender neutral term for a term that's already gender neutral? Look, if anyone's obsessed about this kid's genitalia, it's this kid's mom, who thinks, I guess, that she can hide the balls or hide the ova long enough, including, I guess, from the kid, for that kid to arrive in some pure state at a moment of, like Excalibur pulling her gender identity out of the lake. I don't know how this is exactly supposed to work. I understand, though. I have to say, I understand your friends' concerns. There is a lot of data out there that shows people will treat infants, even week-old infants, they know to be boys or girls differently. And they will interpret the behavior of infants and small children that they understand to be male or female in different ways based on their gendered lenses, gendered obsessions, gendered assumptions. And so that is definitely a thing that happens. Unfortunately, it's not a thing unless you're prepared to be a complete lunatic you can control for absolutely, which would include denying anybody else the pleasure of changing your kid's diaper when they're babysitting. That's just parenting on hard mode, harder mode than it needs to be. Is she really prepared as a single parent to be the only person that changes this child's diapers until this child is old enough to identify as a boy or a girl to this baby mama's satisfaction? That is just, that is not a realistic parenting strategy at all. So what do you do when you have a friend who has a new baby and that friend is doing something crazy? Well, you're right to not want to exit your friend's life, if not for their sake, for the sake of their baby who needs other responsible adults around them who aren't obsessing about gender in such a way as to warp the life of their own child. Not that waiting to listen to what a child has to say about their gender identity and being receptive to a child, perhaps identifying with the gender that doesn't align with their sex assigned at birth, is to warp a child. I do not believe that, and I did not say that. But treating the child as this ball that you can hide, and the fact of this child's sex as something that you can mask. Does this kid not have a pediatrician? Does the pediatrician get to know what the genitals are? Does the person not have any help at all as a single parent from people who may need to supervise this kid during bath time or diaper changing time? What if your friend gets the flu or is sick for a week while she's there, a new parent? They're going to need help. Maybe your friend is going through a little bit of hormonal whoop-de-doo up and down and will level out and come to their senses, and they'll look back on this as a moment of postpartum madness that attached itself to this larger cultural debate and obsession with gender and sex, and sometimes the conflict between sex assigned at birth and gender identity. And they'll let it go. Hopefully soon they'll let it go. Because eventually the cat's going to get out of the bag. People are going to find out. And then what are you going to do? Little boys, little girls, there's something hardwired about the differences between males and females, boys and girls. The solution that's not a problem necessarily we need to fix. We just need to make space in the culture for kids who are, I don't want to use the expression gender conforming, because they're not necessarily conforming. It's just their authentic gender expression or identity, whether they're male or female, and kids whose authentic gender expression is in conflict with assumptions people might make about who they should be or who they are based on their genitalia. Make space for them to live out their own authentic gender expression, which may not fall into those slots, those gender, quote unquote, conforming patterns of behavior that are, again, not necessarily performative or about conforming, but about some kids' authentic gender expression. But we want all kids to be whoever they are authentically. And that means not stigmatizing or punishing or attempting to control kids whose gender expression doesn't reflect assumptions people might make or historically have made about how kids should behave based on their sex. There is a way to navigate this, to move through the world, making space for those kids without raising your kid in a Skinner box in the basement and refusing all help and jumping down the throats of people who ask or perfectly reasonable questions or make perfectly reasonable assumptions. Anyway, what do you do for the kid? If not for the friend sounds annoying, and hopefully they will work through this and knock this shit off. But if not for the friend, for the kid, do try to stay in this kid's life. But maybe to tell your friend that if they're moving through the world worried that everyone is conspiring to get a peek at their kid's genitalia, that maybe they're the one who's thinking a little too much about their kid's genitalia.
Hey Dan, Nancy and the Tech Savvy at-risk youth. First-time caller, very long-time listener and reader, calling in from the Midwest. I'm in my early 30s, and I'm actually calling in about my brother, with a question about my brother. He's 5 years older than I am. He lives about 5 hours away in a different city, and we've been really close as adults on and off for various reasons. But I'm calling about him because, for context, we grew up in a home with like a good amount of relationship trauma. My parents split up when I was 18 months old, and my father was abusive, and he was a serial cheater, and he struggled with substance abuse, and he actually passed away when we were pretty young. And thank God, we were raised by my mom who did an amazing job. But my brother was a bit older, like I said, than I was, and sort of just internalized a lot more of what happened when we were kids. And I think it has affected him way more as an adult than it has me and my other sibling. And he is an alcoholic, my brother. He has been in recovery and sober for coming up on 2 years. And he's on this just incredible journey of caring for himself and for his body and learning to deal with his emotions without alcohol. And I couldn't be more proud of him. And I don't know that I could love him more and be more happy for him. The situation that's come up is that my brother has entered into a new relationship, which I'm really, really happy to hear. But there's a couple of yellow and perhaps red flags surrounding the situation. One is that the woman he's dating just got out of an 8-year relationship that was really serious, and the relationship ended because her partner did not want to commit, did not want to have kids, and that's something that she really wanted. The other piece is that the person that she was in a relationship with is a close friend of my brother's, who is also an alcoholic and is currently in active addiction. And so my brother is dating this woman, but they haven't told her ex and my brother's friend yet. And it's kind of a secret. And my brother has expressed to myself and to some other folks in my family that he feels like hurt that we're not being more supportive, or that we're not more excited about his girlfriend. And for me, it's just like his recovery and his journey and his health is so important to me. And this feels so scary, and like it's just not the right situation, or it's just not a safe situation for him and for all the progress he's made. And I just want to know how to be supportive, Dan.
I can hear at the end of your call, I can hear your voice start to break because you worry for your brother. And man, I feel that. People I love with addiction issues, people I love who've gotten sober, and it was, for many of these people, a long, protracted struggle and real shit shows that splattered all of the people in their lives that they love. And you watch that person after a year or two of sobriety, and you begin to feel really confident in their sobriety and optimistic. And then you see them just do something or stand with someone that's not necessarily an addict themselves, but is something that just vibes for you as kind of slightly risky, addiction adjacent, something that you worry could pull them back in. The red and yellow flags is the woman that he's dating that's giving him a lot of happiness and giving you a lot of anxiety. Her ex of a significant period of time is a close friend of your brother's, but also someone who currently is addicted to drugs and alcohol. And what is it that you fear is going to happen when the inevitable occurs and your brother's good friend finds out your brother is dating his ex-girlfriend, a relationship that ended because they weren't a match. If she wanted kids and he did not, they were going to have to end this relationship at some point. Your brother was not the catalyst, wasn't the cause of this relationship ending. That conflict about kids, which is really kind of irreconcilable in most cases. You have kids or you don't. Kind of a binary choice. Not his fault. Doesn't mean that his friend in the grip of drug and alcohol addiction won't be angry, won't ball up his rage and throw it at your brother. That's a possibility. I imagine that possibility has occurred to your brother, which is why your brother and his girlfriend aren't out to his best friend and her ex about the fact that they're dating now. So rather than saying to your brother, I wish you weren't dating this woman at all because this like 1 degree of separation from someone currently in the grip of addiction, you should say to your brother, let's game this out. He's going to find out eventually. And I met your new girlfriend. I like your new girlfriend. You guys, if they're good together, don't lie. You guys are good together. She's good for you. I want you to be together. I want you to be supportive. But I have this nervousness about exactly when that shit is going to go through that fan, because a lot of shit has gone through the fans around us all our lives. And maybe I'm bringing some of my anxiety about who our father was and you when you were still in the grip of addiction, who you were then, to this. And that's unfair to you and unfair to your girlfriend, and I'll own that. But dude, bro, he's going to find out eventually. When? Better he should find out from you. Better he should find out in a controlled way. But he's going to find out. And then game out with your brother as his ally in the trenches with him, how that's going to work and how you can be helpful. And what the best case scenario for how that might go could be. And if shit goes down, if this guy, the friend, is an alcoholic and a drug addict and also violent or dangerous, in which case, why is he your brother's friend? What are you going to do then? What steps can your brother take to insulate himself and his girlfriend from her drunk addict ex? If steps need to be taken, maybe if all of these things are articulated, you'll be more comfortable talking with your brother and able to be more demonstrably supportive of your brother and his new relationship than you've been so far. Seems to me there's a lot of anxiety that's revolving not around the addict your brother's girlfriend is, because I don't think she is. Surely you would have mentioned if she was. And not the addict that your brother is anymore, but the addict that your brother's friend is still. Focus on that. Let go of the relationship. Be supportive of the relationship. Tell your brother, I am supportive of your relationship. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about this for you. Because these kind of baby games, can't date this woman forever in a closet. Relationships are public-facing things, and he's going to find out together. Let's sit and talk about how I can be supportive of you when that happens. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Euphoria, makers of products for amazing sex, the kind of sex you want to have. Products including arousal oil, clean lube, bath salts, and suppositories. People are literally saying things like this about Euphoria's products. This is a quote. I had a 3-minute orgasm and then a 5-minute orgasm and felt like I was surfing in a perpetual wave pool of pleasure. And another quote, we use Awaken, and when she gets on top, we both come so hard that we see sounds and hear colors. And it doesn't hurt when GQ calls you the best sex product of the year, and Shape says you are the best invention since the vibrator. And leave it to Euphoria to make suppositories sexy. They did it. I'm not sure what they put in there. I know there's CBD at least, but they have some serious love potion energy. So yeah, you have my permission to try this. I fully endorse you to go ahead and treat yourself to more, deeper, fuller pleasure wherever you can find it as often as possible. And you can start with a bottle of Euphoria. Euphoria is offering a special deal for our listeners. Get 20% off your first order by visiting www.euforiawellness.com/savage or use the code SAVAGE at checkout. That's FORIA wellness.com/savage for 20% off your first order. I recommend trying their Awaken Arousal Oil and Sex Oil. You'll thank me later.
Hey, Dan. I'm a longtime listener, mid-30s bisexual from the West Coast. And I'm so mad right now. I have been dating a couple of people, and I'm open to polyamory. An old lover reached out a few months ago, and we reconnected. We'd only dated a couple months the first time, and he ghosted me. He reached out and apologized now. And we've been talking for 3 months, and then we started visiting each other 2 months ago every couple of weeks and texting every day. It started to feel like it was getting really romantic, and he even brought up fluid bonding, and I felt like it was a little soon, and we kind of settled on it was a little soon, but we would revisit. It got brought up again, and we shared some boundaries, mine being that I only want a fluid bond with one person or people that I'm sleeping with, if we're sleeping with people together. So fast forward to this week, I was talking to him on the phone and I heard somebody over the phone, and he texted me later that he's actually in a 7-year relationship that he didn't tell me about prior. I was really hurt and he apologized. I took a couple of days. I just got off an 1.5-hour phone call about what we want in the future, and I expressed family, and he was interested, but also didn't want to ride the relationship escalator, but he still expressed a lot of affection and felt like this had a lot of potential. But at the end of the call of an 1.5 hours, he tells me that he's moving in with his 7-year partner and their girlfriend. And I just got so angry. I felt deceived. I felt deceived when he didn't tell me initially about this 7-year partner. And now I'm just feeling deceived that he engaged in a really intense conversation with me romantically again for an 1.5 hours before telling me that he's moving in with this partner. And he said that I don't understand polyamory and that I just want monogamy light. I blocked his number. I'm feeling weird. I'm not really sure how to sort through this, Dan.
I think you understand polyamory just fine. What you don't understand and what you're angry about is this dance of the 7 veils bullshit that he was engaged in, where it doesn't sound like a monogamous, exclusive relationship or defaulting to that assumption about each other was ever on the table or in the cards. It was always this conversation about being fluid bonded in the context of sex with other people, sex with other partners. And he was poly, and maybe it also sounds like you knew about the fact that he was seeing somebody else. You just didn't know that he couldn't get on a relationship escalator with you because he was already on that relationship escalator with somebody else. And oh my God, dude, if you're out there, if you're also a listener, dude, if you had just said at the start, we always had this connection. I'm in a serious relationship, but it's open and poly. And if you wanted to reconnect, I really liked our connection. Here I am. It's the kind of, I think, shit a lot of people have been doing, taking their shot shit after the pandemic. I know I heard from a few people during the pandemic taking their shot. And a few people heard from me taking my shot. And I think that's actually to the good. But you need to know what game you're fucking playing when you're taking shots or you're asking people to let you take your shot. He needed to tell you. He needed to tell you. And he didn't tell you. And it was the slow roll that was manipulative. That's what you're angry about. Not necessarily that he's got another partner and they're nesting partners and she's his primary partner, but that it wasn't disclosed to you at the outset. And even if you could have wrapped your head around that being a secondary partner or a friend with benefits or something, he was engaging you in this way, in these conversations about our relationship, your connection, even wanting to jump 10 squares ahead to fluid bonding without giving you all the information that you were entitled to have while engaging in those conversations with him. It was almost like he wanted you to get to commit to the idea of being with him in this way, in a serious way, so that when you found out he was with somebody else in a much more serious way, you would feel like, I've already made this investment, and so ... I guess I'm okay with this thing. And the really shitty part is maybe you would have been okay with it if he just disclosed to you, dude. Again, if you're listening, if you just said, you didn't say, because you didn't want to risk this thing with the caller, the woman's voice we just heard, not happening. And now because you didn't say, it's definitely not happening. And she's mad at you, and rightfully so, not because she doesn't understand polyamory, which is not hard to understand, but she doesn't understand why you were playing fucking games. And that's what you're doing. You're playing fucking games. So call her. Every right to be mad about the game he was playing and the ways in which he was attempting to manipulate you, clearly. And this dance of the seven veils bullshit. No. Certain things must be disclosed right away. And the existence of a primary partner that you're moving in with when you're auditioning secondary partners is something that needs to be disclosed right the fuck away. I can't imagine what it must be like to run a small business. Making every big and small decision has to take its toll. But if you have a lot of mailing and shipping to do, Stamps.com is an obvious and easy choice. It streamlines your processes and makes your business more efficient, freeing you up to focus on, yes, all the other decisions you have to make, big and small. The Stamps.com mobile app is like having a post office in your pocket. Wherever you are, the post office is. All you need is a computer and a printer. They even send you a free scale. You can mail checks, invoices, legal documents, books, and everything you need to keep your business running. Seamlessly connect with every major marketplace and shopping cart if you sell online. Access to the USPS and USPS right from your computer or phone anytime, day or night. No lines, no traffic, no waiting. And you'll get rates you can't find anywhere else, like to 89% off USPS and UPS. Order shipping and mailing supplies, labels, and even printers from the supply store when you run low. Make the same no-brainer decision, an easy one, but a big one, same one a million other businesses have made by going with Stamps.com. Sign up with promo code SAVAGE for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the page, and enter code SAVAGE.
Hey, Dan, I just broke up with my boyfriend last week. We were together for a couple years, and I'm really into photography. I've taken a lot of really stunning photos of him as we adventured all over the world the last few years. And I want to ask him not to use my photography in any future dating app. Part of me just feels just really disrespected with the idea of him shopping around my photos to pick up chicks and get laid. I live in a smallish town, and it happened in the past with a prior relationship where a friend just screenshot and sent to me my old boyfriend's dating profile, and it was all these really special moments that we shared together, and it was just really heartbreaking. The boyfriend that I just ended things with last week, I'm pretty devastated by the breakup, but also I think he'll respect my request, but I just wanted to know if that's a valid ask.
Here's a valid ask. You ask your friends not to fucking screenshot your ex-boyfriend's online dating profiles and send them to you for no fucking reason. Why would a friend screenshot your ex's online dating profile and send it to you if not to make you fucking miserable? Who needs a friend like that? That's not something friends do unless you ask. Look, yeah, you can totally ask your ex-boyfriend not to use any of the pictures that you took of him on his dating profiles, all these special moments that you shared before you ended this relationship with him. Seems a little weird and controlling to me. And how far does that extend? If he's dating someone else, is he not allowed to show them any photographs of a trip that he took? If it's a trip that he took with you and you happen to take that photograph, is he not allowed to talk about his past relationship and what was good about it or what worked about it or say anything positive or kind about you? Hopefully he's not the kind of awful person who talks shit about exes. That is always a red flag. You know, most relationships when you're dating and young, most don't last. So when you're with somebody new and you're just dating them, you're a potential future ex, and how they talk about their actual exes is how they will potentially talk about you in the future. And if they have nothing nice to say about any of their exes, they're the common denominator in a lot of fucked up failed relationships, which mean they're probably the fucked up fail, right? But how far does this go? This, like, you're not allowed to reference our time together in the context of pursuing a romantic connection or a relationship with anyone else. Does it bleed past the photographs? Because my position is people have a right to their experiences and a right to discuss them and talk about them. And exes don't have a veto. I don't even think an ex should have a veto over photographic images of us that they may have taken. If it is a particular sensitivity of yours, because you're a photographer and this is your art, and you would like him to keep the photos but to not use them in this particular way, so long as you go to him and recognize, look, what I'm asking here is an accommodation. I'm asking you, even as our relationship has ended, to demonstrate some sensitivity and be willing for me, because of this insecurity of mine, to be considerate in this way. But you have to, I think, acknowledge that this is a bit of an above and beyond ask of someone who has left your life because you told him to. And then if he does this for you, you should be grateful. But I don't think it's something you have a right to expect. You don't get to edit people's memories, and you don't get to control someone's collection of images of them, of photos of them, even ones that you may have taken after the relationship ends.
Hi, Dan. I'm calling because a friend of mine scolded me for using the term crossdresser and suggested I use the term drag instead. Is there really anything wrong with using the term crossdresser? If so, why? And also, what should I use instead?
There is no way to skip through this minefield without offending anybody who's laying in wait, ready to, delighted to take offense. There are people out there who identify as crossdressers who are very offended if you suggest that what they're doing is drag. There are people out there who identified as crossdressers for a long time, were crossdressers, and then came to the realization that they were actually trans women. They weren't cis men who enjoyed the transgression and, for some, the emotional release of cross-dressing. They were actually women the whole time, and they've transitioned, and now they are women, which can unnerve people who are straight ladies married to straight men. It is always straight men who are cross-dressers. They will worry that their husband's cross-dressing could be an indication that their husband may at some point in the future transition. And people get upset when you talk about that, and yet that is the trajectory in the lives of many trans-identified now women out there. Some people are straight male cross-dressers, and some people believe they are straight male cross-dressers and will realize later that they were not. They were women. Woman was the right answer the whole time. So look, cross-dressing is a thing. It is a particular kind of dressing up in the clothes of the opposite sex that some straight men enjoy doing because it gives them the sense of release from perhaps the gender roles that are imposed on them as men that can feel confining and imprisoning. They're allowed to wear soft fabrics and to feel fabulous, but not as fabulous as a drag queen. Drag is something predominantly, historically, overwhelmingly that gay men do to delight and entertain other gay men. Usually used to be in bars and clubs on certain nights with flattering lighting. And now, of course, our strategic national reserves of drag have burst out, and we have drag everywhere all the time in a way that perhaps drag may not be able to sustain. But we got more drag queens and places to put them, so we found more places to put the drag queens that we have. But drag queens and crossdressers are different things. And drag queens are not crossdressers, and crossdressers are not drag queens, and crossdressers aren't trans women, and trans women aren't drag queens or crossdressers. And yeah, you can call a crossdresser a crossdresser. Crossdressers exist. They're a real thing. A drag queen is a different thing. I don't think there's anything offensive about either term. Drag queen, I did drag for a long time. And you know what? When we did drag, and I went out to the drag clubs with my friends, we could instantly tell the difference between one of us and one of them. I don't use them in an othering way. One of the cross-dressers who would sometimes come hang out at the drag bar because they could feel more comfortable in a drag bar cross-dressing than they could, or at a club with drag cross-dressing, than they could cross-dressing at some straight bar where they might get murdered. But there was a difference, certain easily identifiable taxonomy at play, and was evident. And you could tell the difference between the cross-dressers and drag queens and the trans women out at the club, too. But all three groups exist. All three groups are valid, and I don't think any of those terms are offensive. Your friend's mileage may vary. You know, and we rarely hear from cross-dressers anymore. If you're a cross-dressing straight dude, not a trans woman, you're a cross-dressing straight dude out there, and what you do is not drag, give us a call. Tell us why you do it, what it means to you, and why you love it or why you need it, or both. We'd love to hear from you. All right, time for my favorite part of the show, listener feedback. First up, some of the comments left on last week's show in the very lively comment threads at savage.love. Says Mythic Fox, the 16-year-old boy who wants to get into pup play might want to look for furry groups to talk to. There are a lot of furry events out there, and there are furry groups that maintain teen-appropriate environments as it allows weirder than normal queer kids to connect with their peers. And while not all pups/handlers are furries or vice versa, there is overlap, and I guarantee the caller will find a sympathetic ear. Says Ted the Bellhop, the caller looking to hire a secret sex worker for a friend. While that's an excellent plot device for a raunchy sitcom, that is a terrible idea IRL for all the reasons Dan mentioned. Ted asked the caller, have you thought about fucking him yourself instead? And finally says, by Dan Van, getting bread is a vile term. As someone with a uterus who is not just child-free, but who has been utterly horrified by the very idea of pregnancy and childbirth all my life, and who is now watching as people like me in my home country are being put in the position of forced pregnancy and childbirth, I don't like people who will never risk this horror appropriating and using that term. That is a very good and very sobering point by Dan Fan, and while it is mostly gained by men who use bread in this way, I have heard more and more women using the term to mean exactly what the gay boys do when they use it, taking loads. And zooming out for a second, I don't think telling people that this transgressive term they enjoy using because it's transgressive is even more transgressive and more offensive than they first realized will get them to stop. If anything, it could have the opposite of the intended effect. On the bright side, sexual slang is always changing and morphing, and we've been on this bread business for about a decade, so it's probably on its way out anyway. All right, for more listener feedback and more of my responses, check out Struggle Session, where I respond sometimes at unreasonable length to listener and reader comments. Goes up most Thursdays at savage.love. And now, everyone's favorite part of the show, where my listeners get the last word.
This is a response to the caller in 925 who wanted to hire her heartbroken friend the services of a sex worker. It sounds like you're talking about hiring a sex worker and then not telling your friend that that's what's going on. Yeah, Dan's right. That would make him feel a lot worse when he did eventually find out, because the thing is, too, is I don't think that there's a sex worker who would be comfortable with that for a lot of reasons, including, you know, the consent, the full knowing consent of both parties of, you know, what this interaction is, as well as their safety. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I think if you're looking to have your heartbroken friend feel better about themselves, maybe do things together and encourage them to do things that will kind of improve their self-confidence, like working out together, trying something new, that kind of thing. But yeah, there isn't a sex worker around who's going to be down to pretend that that's not what's going on.
Hey, Dan, this is about the caller who was taking loads, lots of loads, and then taking the Doxy pill. I don't know anything about Doxy. I'm your generation, Dan. I'm 59 years old. I'm a gay man. I lost my best friend in 1991 to AIDS, and I don't know. I'm all for condoms and safe sex, and all these new kids are just taking pills nowadays and just fucking left and right, taking loads after loads, and just putting antibiotics in their body. What is that going to do to their intestinal flora? Not good. Not good. I say stick with condom and safe sex.
To the caller from last week's episode, who's in the middle of a divorce, I'm here from the other side to say it gets better. And I've been there, and it is really rough, but there's no going back. There's only going forward. Don't lose yourself. Get professional help. When you go forward, I'm here to tell you there's goodness on the other side.
And we're going to leave it there. There are 3 ways for you to get us your questions or comments for future shows. You can record your question or your comment at savage.love/askdan, or you can make a voice memo on your very own phone and email us your question or comment to q@savage.love, or you can call our landline and leave us a message at 206-302-2064. Don't forget, Hump Part 2 tickets are on sale now. This is your last chance to grab discount tickets for Hump in theaters, as Hump was meant to be seen before the early bird sale ends on July 31st. Visit humpfilmfest.com right now to grab your tickets. And while you're there on the Hump website, be sure to click on Submit to find out how you can get your dirty little masterpiece into our Dirty Little Film Festival. Also, the next Savage Love Live exclusively for Magnum subs, August 1st at a new time, 2 p.m. Send in your questions now. We really appreciate it when we get those questions in advance for the live shows at savage.love/askdan. Follow me on Instagram and Threads at Dan Savage. Follow me at Blue Sky at Dan Savage, and you can still find me on The Bad Place at Fake Dan Savage. Follow Emily Catalano on Instagram and Threads at Catalano_Emily, and check out her website where you can find her album and upcoming tour dates, emilycomedy.com. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian and me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth, and Nancy. We'll all be back at you next week on an installment of the Savage Lovecast. And remember, don't carry your taser around in your pocket. You never know what could happen.